and then your defensive line is essentially off the practice squad, and you're shuffling. And again, guys are getting hurt there as well. I'm sorry, I could be the best defensive coordinator, but you're going up against good teams, and and that's on Doug Peterson too, and Mike Rowe with his offense, because Doug Peterson knows he can look across and he can say, hey, you know what, Jim Schwartz, his D tackles this week are off the practice squad. They may not get a lot of pressure. You know what, Jim Schwartz's corners are hurt. They're banged up. So maybe, just maybe, we got to design a system where I run the ball and I take time off the clock, and we're a ball control offense, something like that to keep the defense off the field.
Yeah, which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we overall have not done that since that game in Green Bay.
Exactly. Yep.
It really, you had, in my opinion, talent that unfortunately is wasted right now in Jordan Howard.
Big time. I want to see him. I want to see him with 20 carries. I want to see them rely on Jordan Howard. Give him 20 carries. I want to see those guys catching some balls out of the backfield. This offense needs to be designed. And I know this goes against Doug Peterson, but he needs to run the ball, because you got to hide the defense. You got to hide it, because Schwartz is doing everything he can, but that defense is like the Titanic right now. And the only way to get a win right now if you're the Eagles, you got to be a ball control, time of possession offense. You got to. Dink and dunk down the field. Carson Wentz, and that's the other thing I put on Carson Wentz. He can't hold the ball and try to make the big play every time. He's got to take his checkdowns and move the ball along and become a ball control offense. That's what they got to be, because Schwartz is doing a hell of a job. He's trying to, make the defense respectable, but you can't do it with what he's got. You can't.
And that's where I say, too, about Carson, and that's where I said recently about Carson as well. I'm not expecting him to go out game in and game out and throw for over 300 or 330, and try to throw for 4 touchdowns, I'm not expecting him to be that quarterback right now.
No.
Given with the circumstances with what had been dealt with, okay, with Sean Jackson and hurt enough. That's why you have Jordan Howard. That's why you have a Miles Sanders to try to lighten the load a little bit, hand off that ball, make them, have that running game going. Take that, have that clock management on your side.
Yep.
That's what think the joint, that is the way you put it.
Yeah, I mean, look at, you have Jacoby Brissett and Teddy Bridgewater. Don't have the strongest arms, but look at what they're doing on their respective teams. You don't have to make a play every time the ball is snapped. Take what the defense gives you. Be a ball control offense. Just go make it run through the running back. You look at San Francisco. They go through the running backs. Just be a ball control offense. Take time off the clock and give the ball to the Eagles running backs, who I think are very good. And that's the way you got to be, because the defense right now is a sieve. And Schwartz is doing everything he can. But,
and play smart football.
Yep. Don't turn the ball over.
Right, like smart, intelligent football right now. Don't, like I said, as far as Carson, I'm not looking for big games from him. I'm looking for games in which he's a part of, yes, and not get, my thing is for him not to get hurt, not to get sacked so many times.
Yep.
For him to play smart football. That's what it starts with him, and hopefully it carries through.
You got it. And Ken, before as we wrap up with the Philadelphia Eagles, what would be your prediction for this game on Sunday?
Well, I mean, I will say, you know, unless everything on both sides of the ball is fixed, ready to go, that we can hopefully pull out the win. You know, for as much as I love this team, and still will continue to love this team. I mean, right now, again, right now it's not looking too healthy, and I've put down for a moment that the Bills go on and secure a win, and pretty much at least by at least 10 points, given the circumstance right now.
Ken,
But, hey, yeah, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead, Ken.
No, I was going to say, furthermore, okay, unless Doug Peterson fixed this, was able to fix this disaster, so to speak, this week, I can tell you right now, I'm picking against them. I'm picking totally against them, and they need to show me until that they had, you know, that they, if they're able to fix it, you know, fine, you know, otherwise, until then, I'm picking against them. I mean, I already picked the Bills, so.
Ken, I am in lockstep with you. Couldn't agree more. I picked the Bills too. I am a big an Eagle fan, as you will find, but I picked the Bills to win this because I looked at that offense the past couple of games, and I looked at the way that they're operating. I look at all these leaks that are coming out, and Doug Peterson is trying to put a fresh coat of paint on this thing that's rusting from the inside out. And I am saying for the Philadelphia Eagles, show me something, and then I will pick you again. But everything I'm seeing coming from the Eagles is bad. I see Doug Peterson just trying to paint a rosy picture or, you know, around something that's becoming a garbage pile right now. Although there's talent on the team, which is again very frustrating for me. But I am with you. I see a lot of these things. They're not pulling together. They're coming apart. Former players are ripping the team. I mean, it is just a bad situation. And you need, if you are going to win on Sunday, you need your team to be pulling in lockstep with each other, all the units, offensive line, quarterback, defense. And let me tell you, here's the thing. The Buffalo Bills have and we said this earlier in the segment, Buffalo Bills have the third-ranked defense. So here's the thing. If the Eagles go out, and nothing tells me that it's going to change, if the Eagles go out and again are sluggish at the start of the game, fall behind the Buffalo Bills, 10-0, 14-0, something like that, which you would think you're still in the game. But no, not against the third-ranked defense. Game over. Eagles are not going to come back. Buffalo is going to keep on rolling. And I see this as a loss for the Eagles that will define Peterson's reign going forward and the rest of the season. The wheels are going to come off because after this week, like we discussed, you've got the Chicago Bears on next Sunday at 1 o'clock. Then you got the bye week, and then you got Sunday at 4:25 hosting the New England Patriots at Lincoln Financial Field, and then the Seattle Seahawks. So, yeah, I see this going really bad. And I see this as a Buffalo Bills win. And then Katie bar the door because it's going to be awful in Philly when the Eagles lose to Buffalo, and things are going to go big time off the rails. But, Ken, you have some good news for us.
I certainly do. I certainly do.
And
Now,
go for it.
figuring the 9 o'clock hour yesterday morning, I'm sure, like my Facebook, like James' Facebook, and everybody's social media left observed yesterday. Lo and behold, we found out that we have now the Philadelphia Phillies have our 55th manager in history in place, and that is one Joseph Elliott Girardi.
Love it.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, what? He's got overall as manager, as a manager in an 11-year span, accumulated at 910 wins against 710 loss record. Not bad at all. Of course, we know 10 years ago what had happened against them. Okay. Of course, he's a four-time champ. Okay, three as a player and obviously one as a manager. Okay, and a 2006 Manager of the Year award winner. Obviously, the old Florida Marlins. Look, a wonderful hire. I mean, look, I said 2 years ago that when the Yankees broke the news and released him of his duties, more or less, okay, putting it nicely, why didn't we open up the door and the doors and the dialogue to him and his agent, okay? But of course, what's done is done, and what's the past in the rearview mirror, that's falling apart. Fast forward now to 10 years, okay? We have, well, I would, in my opinion, I would have to say this hire of Joe Girardi has got to be one of the best. Has got to be right now by far one of the best. Because you got a leader who can get, to basically become that disciplinarian. That, of course, obviously we have been lacking for quite some time now, at least the last year or two. And, and there will be accountability. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it this time around. Because, quite frankly, if Joe Girardi is not the guy, and let's not forget, right now the start is a 3-year with a 4th-year option. Okay, for I believe it's 2023. So I mean, look, it's a nice little contract to start off with. I see really, really, really good things in store. I really do. But if Girardi is not the guy, Jay,
Yep.
who in this era of analytics overall, who is? Because really honestly, if Girardi is not the guy, not to shed any negativity right away on this, quite frankly, I don't see this team unfortunately being a contender for what could be 10 years more down the road, 20 years more down the road. I just don't see it happening. I think finally, and mind you, thanks to John S. Middleton,
Yep.
who initiated all this.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
I say kudos and thank you, John, for this hire, because this is the leadership. And look, I'll always love Charlie Manuel. I'll always love Dallas Green. Please do not get me wrong, anybody. But this, in my opinion, it's got to be right now by far ranked as the best hire, I think. I don't know about anybody else, but I think this is the best hire leading up to now. And mind you, I really, I expected Girardi all along. All right, but this is the best hire I think Philly had yet to date in the team's history right now.
It's pretty close. It's definitely up there. Like I said, with the two guys that you mentioned, because those two guys took the Phillies, and in Dallas Green and Charlie Manuel took the Phillies to the World Series and won the World Series. And of course, Charlie kept them competitive after that as well. So, you have to look at those two guys as pretty good hires for as manager for the Phillies. As you said, Girardi's going to have some swag, some cachet that, quite frankly, Kapler did not. He's going to be able to push back against the front office, against against the GM and the president, in terms of player acquisition, in terms of, no, I'm making out the lineup card. No, this is how I'm managing game to game, and they're just going to let him do it because, as I said on the show, that I feel that those two guys, that Clintack and McPhail, are actually, I can't say playing for the job, but actually managing for their jobs. Because if they did not go lockstep with what Middleton want, yes, they could voice their opinion, but ultimately, if they are not in lockstep with what Middleton wants from here on out, they're gone. Especially this coming season, So, in a prove-it year for those two, Clintack and McPhail, they needed to be in lockstep with everything McPhail was saying and wanting to do. So that's why I think, not only was Girardi, I think, like you, the best choice to be Phillies manager at this point, because Dusty Baker, I don't think, yes, he knows about analytics, but I don't think he embraces them as much as Girardi does. I just think Showalter, kind of the same thing, as, kind of the same thought, So I think Girardi did both, is good at both. Managing analytics. Yep.
And I have my respect for both Showalter and Baker.
Yeah.
Anybody do not get me wrong. But, at the end of the day here, okay, Girardi, in the 11 years, has, whether they had made the playoffs or not, okay, and oh, by the way, his very last year, what happened? One game prior to the World Series, he managed to lead that team one game prior to the 2017 World Series. Okay, and yes, unfortunately lost. But,
And here's the thing.
what have the other managers done pretty lately?
Exactly. I think McCannon was okay. But like I said, Kapler could not stop the losing, and that's what bugged me about Kapler is when the Phillies started losing in August and in September his first year, he couldn't stop it. He couldn't put the brakes on it, and then it started earlier last year. He couldn't stop it, and that's what got on me about Kapler. I think Kapler is a very intelligent guy. I think he has a great personality. He can speak very well. But when it comes to when a team starts losing and gets into this rut, he can't get him out of it. And that's what sticks with me about Kapler. And that's where I think the difference is going to come with Girardi, is that when the team starts losing, and we know it's going to happen because all the teams, no matter how good you are, you have losing streaks in baseball. It just comes with the game. Girardi will be able to minimize those, and keep the team competitive. And that will pay off in August and September in hopefully, getting the Phillies into the postseason. And having significant sway within player acquisition, with having ultimate say in the lineup card, having having a say in, hey, I want this guy. This guy's tearing it up. Alex Bohm is tearing it up at AAA. Get him up here. I need a third baseman.
Say, Jay, like you had said the other day on prior to the broadcast today, that look, on paper that we have talent. If there's no risk that we have talent,
Yep.
And as long as that's going to take effect, which we know it will,
Oh
it
yeah.
very well could be the big difference here.
Oh yeah.
The,
Yep.
the big difference here. So, you're not running the ground ball out. Yeah, your bottom is, and I'm trying to put it nicely for family. Your bottom is going to sit on the bench for 5 minutes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be a big key, and different spaces too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you look at it too. If I'm John Middleton and I know that I have to sink millions of dollars into JT Real Muto coming up, right? Because that's what the Phillies are going to have to do. And he's going to be my, you know, current and future catcher. Who better to learn from than Joe Girardi? Now, maybe Joe Girardi didn't have the best career as a catcher, but I'm sure Joe Girardi knows how to teach the fundamentals of catching. And that's going to make JT Realmuto, who's already one of the best, if not the best catcher in baseball, even better. He can teach him how to call a game and any little odds and ends that he notices. Any holes in JT's game, I'm sure Girardi can do that. And then being a catcher, you have to talk to a pitcher. Not all pitchers are all stars, So how do you nurse a good game out of a mediocre pitcher or a pitcher who's struggling? How do you get him through 6 innings, so that you can go to your bullpen? That's things that Joe Girardi knows that are intrinsic to Girardi, and he can tell to these guys, And then I'm sure, and then the other thing is we got to think about the 2 openings on the staff. We got hitting coach and we got pitching coach that are going to be significant hires for Girardi. What message is Girardi sending to the pitchers? And that's going to be a big hire. Same thing with the hitters. And I think too with the hitters, especially Rhys Hoskins, I think Joe Girardi is going to have him relax. And I think a lot of it, we were talking about this too. I think with Rhys Hoskins, it's just getting out of his own head. Calming down, relaxing. Don't let the pressure get to you. Get out of your own head. Forget some of the things that the former manager, told you. Just go up there, relax, get a natural swing, and instead of clubbing up, trying to get a home run every time out, be satisfied with a single or a double or a walk or what have you. Just get out of your own head, and I think that's something that Girardi will bring too.
Right. I'd like we alluded to with the the Eagles and trying to bring down that the area of Carson Wentz trying to make that big play and try have at it with the run game more than clock management. That would be the same with the Phillies too. Like try to use up like you say, try to be comfortable at the plate, breathe a little bit, be comfortable at the plate, and don't think, okay, yeah, I need to hit that home run. I mean, it's not going to happen every time now.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen every time now. I mean, you gotta utilize that Charlie Manuel saying, see the ball, hit the ball.
Yep.
Wherever it goes, that's where it's going to go. I mean, it's just that's just the nature of it. That don't be, because the strikeouts are going to be higher than all get out, and you really want that side, to accumulate on your baseball card responses. No.
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, he's got to get out of his head a little bit. That's the mental aspects of it are, they're there
Yeah.
and not in a good way.
Yep, and I don't know if you thought about who may be the Phillies pitching coach coming up or the hitting coach coming up. I'm seeing some interesting names being bandied about. You've got maybe Larry Rothschild's name, Mickey Callaway's name. I'm looking on Twitter. Uh, you know. Kind of bandied about Dave Island as a pitching coach. John Farrell, I've seen his name on Twitter. Some of these guys are, long shots or whatever, what have you. But, some interesting names that are being bandied about. Have you put in any thought as to who you may want to see or who you think may become the Phillies pitching coach?
Sure. Well, I'm not opposed to both Rothschild or Island as well. I'm not opposed to either one of them because I know the successes that they've had with, Girardi and
Yep.
Torrey prior. So, Torrey in his last 2 years, I think, that might have been with Dave Island, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong on that. But I'm not opposed to either one of them. I certainly would not, look, given what happened in New York, with Callaway as far as manager goes, let's not forget, it wasn't a bad pitching coach at all for the Indians a couple, quite a few years back. So I wouldn't be so opposed to a possible shot at Callaway.
No.
I could see more Girardi type coaches as far as Island and Rothschild go. Now, as far as hitting coach, I think I know I've been reading a lot about Jim Thorpe.
Yep.
All right. Now, I'm not at all opposed to having Thorpe, but I think the one thing that we need to sort of keep in our heads right now, especially now that George will be at the helm, okay? It's going to be a new era.
Yep.
All right? We all have to look at it in a positive way. Yes, it's Phillies baseball. Yes, Girardi's going to try to instill the original flavor of Phillies baseball, the way we all grew up and watched. All right, but we have to realize something too. I wouldn't mind having Jim Thome because yes, he was a student of Charlie Manuel. Okay, in Cleveland all those years. He knows what it's all about. I would love to have him, but I think if we start including a few former Phillies in the coaching staff, I don't know if I can't say if it's a bad thing or a good thing, but I don't necessarily know if you want to continue to tinker with that a little bit. I'm not, because what we're dealing with a leader now. He, like we had mentioned too, Jay. Yeah, we're not going to be looking at veterans that are going to be up in their 70s and coaching.
Yeah.
Okay, but at the same time, I don't think we want first. We don't want. I don't think Girardi's going to be looking at an extreme first timers, but I don't think he's going to be. He's not wanting high-end veterans that are near the tail end of their careers either. I think he's going to have that experience. The experienced coaching staff that has been to the game, been to the playoffs, I should say, been to the big game, the big dance, or has won that dance as well. And to give our team to give that 26 man, 40 man, all right, the teaching
Yeah.
to make Lee Pop and Bryce Harper, even though yes, he lived up to year one, but Bryce Harper, everybody down the line, better hitter, you know, down, you know, stuff like that. And like we were mentioning too, wouldn't be a bad idea. It would not be a bad idea. You might want to mention it, Jay.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
But as far as an assistant pitching coach does that,
CC Sabathia.
you know, I mean, it's just a thought.
Yeah,
It's just a thought, just an idea.
yeah.
But you know, but the point being, you have somebody, you know, that could teach, and you know, and talk to, you know, an Aaron Noel, or give him a little tidbits here and there that could, you know, again, Aaron Noel is a good pitcher. He yes, can be and still can be an A. But let's, you know, it's stuff that can, if it's gonna up their game that much better,
Yeah.
by all means.
Yeah. And
So, you know, I'm telling you, I am seeing, starting with Girardi, you know, it's a new era.
And
believe, in Philadelphia Phillies baseball.
I just want to touch on two things real quick with you. Number one is my suggestion about Sabathia was not as the pitching coach; it was as an assistant pitching coach. Put like a Dave Island or a Rothschild or somebody who's been there, done that for a while in charge as the pitching coach. But then Sabathia could be the assistant pitching coach, aka a glorified cheerleader. You know, just to be there as a reference for the guy to study under Rothschild or to study under Island or whomever it is, John Farrell, you know, and learn and just be a sponge for what the pitching coach does. And, you know, just basically as he's learning that, you know, just be like a sounding board, glorified cheerleader type, you know, explaining to the guys what it's like to go through a grueling playoff series, what it's like, what you have to do to prepare yourself from spring training through the playoffs, you know, something like that, you know, just be that kind of sounding board, not to be a teacher, because quite frankly, I would not want right now CC Sabathia as my pitching coach, because quite frankly, I don't know how well he can teach. And that's the job of a coach, is to be there to nurture guys along, to spot mistakes, to be authoritative, not necessarily their ultimate buddy like Gabe Kapler was, but in certain instances, yes, but more to be like a boss, you know, an authority figure, to be able to teach. And I don't know how good CC is in that role. I haven't seen him in it. I don't know how well he'd be able to do it. We've seen some very good baseball players. Look at Ryan Sandberg, some other managers that you think, oh, hey, this guy's a Hall of Famer. He would be an awesome manager. No, just because you're a really good baseball player doesn't mean you're able to teach and to spot things that players are doing wrong, and to get players to buy in. You know, so I want to see CC in the role of like an assistant, have him do well in that, and then anoint him as like a pitching coach or whatever. But because I don't know how well he'd be as a boss and not a buddy, not a teammate. You know, how authoritative he'd be in that role. So, you know, so that was my thought about CC. And then the other thing that happened last night, as we kind of wrap up the segment with you, Ken, is my gosh, did Mets Twitter go off yesterday when this announcement came out? Holy cow. You know, it was doom and gloom, you know, up in Flushing Meadows, New York. Oh my gosh, did they take Brody Van Wagenen over the coals and Mets ownership for not signing Girardi?
Yeah. Oh
my God.
Everybody that I talk to on the street, okay, they're like, either one, don't talk to me.
Yep.
Two, it's like, okay, yeah, you have to work. Hey, I wasn't the one who signs on
Yeah, yeah. You know, and my point is, and we don't know who Brody Van Wagenen and the Mets ownership are ultimately going to sign as their manager. But here's the thing: the key is to get the right manager in place at the right time for your team. So yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe the Mets don't get the splash signing that Girardi was, but maybe they get somebody that will be right for their team at this time. And we just have to wait and see on that. Yes, would Girardi have made a good manager for the Mets? Maybe, or maybe not. Who knows? And maybe he might not have been the right manager. He may have been the right manager maybe for this 2020 upcoming season for the Mets, but 21, 22, 23, when some of these guys may not be players be on the Mets at that time, because my point about the whole Mets is they are, I don't want to call them cheap, but they are frugal with their money. They don't spend as much as other teams. They're a big market team. They don't spend a lot. So who knows what the pitching staff is going to look like in a couple of years. The offense is going to look like in a couple of years. I mean, this could be a whole different Mets team in a couple of years. And in that time, Joe Girardi may not have been the best manager for him. They may want a younger guy that's able to communicate better with younger players, So, just because they didn't get Girardi, give Brody Van Wagenen a chance, see who he comes up with, and then go from there. And then, roast him over the coals.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I mean, like, it's very quick.
Yep.
And then I just wanted to get into a few quick shout outs if I could.
Sure.
I've been reading a lot about Beltran, and I don't know, as to what
Yep.
Abragazo or anybody, in New York, has to offer in regards to, whether it's Beltran or, but point being, okay, Beltran could very well be that possible fit right now for them. Knowing what he knows about New York, knowing what he knows about the team, and then,
Yep.
as far as like how when he played, but the familiarities with the organization and that. But yeah, I mean, like let's see what Van Wagenen has to offer. Who he is.
Yep. I agree.
So very quick. I just wanted to give two quick shout outs if I could.
Absolutely.
A good gentleman that I used to communicate with on Facebook, and that's Mike Dunn.
Yep.
And he's listening, which I'm sure he is. And a familiar face and voice that Billy, I'm sure, knows, Jason Lee from Heat 101 and PHL 17. I'm sure is listening as well. So welcome to you both, and glad to have you both, and continue to listen to us.
Absolutely. And before we let you go, we always do this with you, Ken. How about some NFL picks from you?
Let's do it.
All right. Going to go down just a few of the games happening on Sunday. The Arizona Cardinals, who are 3-1, going into New Orleans to face the Saints, who are 6-1. Gotcha. And then we have the New York Jets, who are 1-5 after their debacle, going into Jacksonville to face the Jaguars, who are 3-4.
I think Minshew last week was startled, sluggish, but rebounded in a real major way. I got to go with Minshew and company.
Gotcha. And then we have the New York Giants, who are 2-5, going into Detroit to face the Lions, who are 2-3-1.
That was, for me, was a bit of a tough ball. The Lions, I believe, will reign supreme at home.
Gotcha. And then we have another matchup Sunday at 4:25. We have, or 4:05, I should say, we have the Carolina Panthers going to San Francisco to face the undefeated San Francisco 49ers.
And they will continue to be undefeated.
I hear you. I am going with you on that one as well. Oakland Raiders, who are 3-3, 500, going into Houston to face the Texans, who come in with a record of 4-3.
Yeah, Texas.
All right. And then the other game I wanted to get your opinion on is the Green Bay Packers, who are currently 6-1, going up against our old friend Andy Reid in Kansas City. Reid and the Chiefs are 5-2.
I usually like I would say, and Aaron I know had a real monster day last week, but I always go with my gut and love for Andy. I have to go with Chiefs. I just it's Andy Reid. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I gotta disagree with you. I'm looking at Kansas City's roster. I know, Mahomes is doing everything he can to get better and start playing again. But I look at Kansas City's defense, and I look at Aaron Rodgers, who's been hot. The revamped Packers defense, and I just don't see it. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to go into Kansas City, and it could be a bloodbath down there for the Kansas City Chiefs.
No, I agree. No, I do agree with you. I mean, I just with the Chiefs, I know there were one point, what was it on the radio, I believe.
Yeah.
That when they were on radio the other day, but they were. I mean, their defense was on and off. And when they were on, they made some huge plays, and giving Spagnuolo a lot of credit there. But otherwise, no, I agree. But like I said, hey, you're picking the Packers. I'm picking the Chiefs.
Yep. Exactly. All right, Ken, before we let you go, can you let everybody know how they can find you again on social media?
Sure thing. Ken Moskowitz on Facebook and Guard Ken, and on Twitter and Instagram, Skyborn Spotter.
All right, Ken, look forward to having you on again next Friday afternoon. Probably be dissecting the Eagles game and the rest of what's going on in sports, and probably analyzing Joe Girardi's introductory press conference.
Absolutely. No doubt. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Sounds good, Ken. And we will see you again next Friday afternoon. Have a great weekend. All our best to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you and yours, Jay, and as well as you and yours as well, Jeff.
All right.
Thanks, Ken.
All right. There you go. And thank you, Ken. And, of course, that was Ken Moskowitz. We enjoy talking to him each and every Friday. And then now we are going to a segment we run each and every Friday afternoon. It's done by my brother, Jeff. It's called This Week in Sports History. He opens up the history books, takes a look back. It could be a year ago. It could be 10 years ago. It could be 1970s, and just kind of lets you know what big events happened in the world of sports this upcoming week. Takes a look back in time. It's an absolutely awesome segment. We want to have you stay tuned with that. And then hopefully when we come back, we will be talking to another one of our good friends. I'm going to keep you in suspense for that. You know what? I'll just tell you. It's going to be Mike Nebbia. He's going to be joining us. We'll get the New York point of view of the Joe Girardi hiring, talk a little Giants, talk a little NFL with Mike. So that will be upcoming after This Week in Sports History. So with that, we're going to turn it over to my brother, Jeff. And here is This Week in Sports History.
You're listening to
Okay, so I've been dealing with stuff on my end. That's why I haven't been talking.
I kind of figured because I got a text from Mike saying there was no sound.
That's the thing. So I went back in. I put the mixer back on,
Okay.
and I noticed every other profile or whatever always has, like in camera one, board in there. And I went through all ours. I couldn't find it. So I don't know if it's a setting or some kind of added that they add to the camera one, so that when it goes to have this be it, because people were saying they could hear you just fine,
Okay.
and I'm assuming that's probably the mic on here.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's off.
All right.
You're listening to the Sports Skillet Radio Show, cooking up all the hot takes. Jump in and join us at 609-919-9200. Download our app. Skillet live stream every Friday afternoon and every Sunday on Fox Sports Radio 920, The Jersey. Check us out on sportsskilletradio.com. Download our app and take us on the show. Remember the TV show Cheers, where everybody knows your name?
I'm going to show you something.
Every time I walk in a Wildflowers restaurant on Penny served you well, and perhaps you need to know your name.
Listening to the Sports Skillet Radio Show. Real time, all the hot takes. Check the news at 609 911 Don't forget to download our app at sportsskilletradio.com. And listen to your daily
Well, and perhaps you need to know your name.
Listening to the Sports Skillet Radio Show. Real time, all the hot takes.
And we are back here with the Sports Skillet Radio Show on our Friday live stream. Again, as you heard during the commercial break, we want to encourage you to head over to sportsskilletradio.com, where you can download our app. You can listen to all the good things that we have going on our show every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. If you're local, you can tune in to Fox Sports Radio 920 The Jersey. We always have some great guests on the show. Great conversation there, as well as here on our live stream. And again, interact with us on our live stream here on YouTube or on our social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. We want to hear what's important to you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. That's what we do here on the Sports Skillet Radio Show. I understand we have some audio difficulties, so if you miss any portion of the show because of the audio, don't worry about it, because we are recording it so we can upload it. I think Jeff will agree with me on that.
Absolutely.
That-
I mean,
That after the show, we can't upload, the audio of the show, or the show in its entirety.
exactly.
So-
I mean, like last 2 weeks, we've had visual problems.
Yeah.
You not see us; it was all mussed up and everything. Today, you can see us just fine. You
But
just
it's a
can't even
little-
hear us half the time.
Yeah, so like I said, we are recording the show. So any audio problems, we will be uploading the show in its entirety to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so this is 3 strikes. So I think next week we'll have all the bugs worked out.
Exactly. And we have our YouTube and we have our live stream expert too, as well, back in the saddle.
Whoever that is.
That would be Chaz.
All right, who apparently doesn't seem to be here because, I don't know.
He leaves early on Friday, He works hard for the money.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. I'm just messing with him.
Okay, well, now we want to bring into the conversation our good friend and also contributor to the show, Mike Nebbia, to get the Mets side of the Joe Girardi signing, talk a little Giants with us, NFL as well as NASCAR. Mike, how are you doing today? So the Joe Girardi signing was announced yesterday morning. What is your take on Joe Girardi going to the Philadelphia Phillies? It could. Exactly, because you don't want to hire a guy. Because here's the thing. In my estimation, Brodie Van Wagenen has to get this hire correct, because he brought in Mickey Callaway. who was on some radars of different teams as a possible manager, but Brody Van Wagenen brought him in. Didn't go as well as the Mets or they had hoped exactly. So he had to get rid of him, and now he's doing his second managerial search. And a lot of times you don't get a third. So he really has to get this hire correct, and it can't be a 1-year hire. It has to be a guy that Brody Van Wagenen, whoever this person is, Brody Van Wagenen is going to come out and give him a 3, probably the same type of maybe not the money, but the same type of years that Girardi got in Philadelphia. Yep. Yep. Well, I mean, I don't think you're going to get him off the Astros. You might get his bench coach, though. He's one guy that I've kind of been lobbying for, which is Joe Espada. He's on a lot of teams' list this year, not the Phillies, but, because they were looking for a guy with more experience. But Espada is apparently being highly regarded as an upcoming manager for some teams. And, it wouldn't hurt for Brody Van Wagenen, even if he's not going to hire him, just to bring him in, just to pick his brain, just to talk to him, to get his opinions, to get Espada's opinions on the Mets. But Espada would be a good choice for the Mets manager. Yes, it would be a first-time manager, but he comes with a lot of experience, highly regarded. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you want somebody that can relate to the players, that will be like an authoritative figure, that will maybe combine kind of like a Girardi, but, that will hold things together maybe a little bit better than Callaway did, that, handles the media a little bit better, because it's going to be a pressure cooker for whoever's hired as the Mets manager this upcoming season. I would agree. Absolutely 100%. Just like with Clintock and McPhail on the Phillies, if they didn't get this managerial hire correct, they were going to be gone. And, getting Girardi for the Phillies keeps their job intact for a few more seasons. But like I said, with Brody Van Wagenen, you hit it right on the head. If he doesn't get a guy that can sell some tickets, or that the Mets fans can kind of believe in at least a little bit, then it's going to be difficult for Van Wagenen to keep his job past this upcoming season. He could, because he didn't have a whole lot of experience as a GM when he was hired. So again, it wouldn't be that difficult for the Mets to move on from Brody Van Wagenen and get a more experienced season. Yeah, exactly. For their team. Do you have, like I said, I think you mentioned a couple people, but do you have anybody in mind that you would like to see the Mets hire as their manager?
Like I said, I'd like to see Bogart get it. I'd like to see Dalton get it. Going back to my college memories of watching Dalton on the Mets in that championship team. First made it to the World Series that year, but Adam Wainwright tried to get in the way of that. 07 and 08 were also possible championship years, but then those collapses. I don't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Also, like you said, Espada, the Astros, not that far off from being a good manager. It would be a good time for the Mets to really see younger players, done so successfully in Houston, so successfully in New York.
Yep, 100%. You know, it's going to be interesting because I do think the Mets right now have more talent on their team than the Phillies do. You know, when you look at the pitching staff and some of the guys we've mentioned in other shows that are going to be coming back. So I do think talent-wise, the Mets are probably better off right now than the Phillies are. So again, when whoever Van Wagenen hires, you know, you got to be able to pull all this talent together and get the most out of it. You really do.
Exactly, but you also have to be a tactician, a game tactician as a manager. Manage your team from game to game, even inning to inning.
And
Step in and figure out, you know what, if this opposing pitcher is doing to my team, what do I have to do to counteract this pitcher's supposed advantage?
bingo.
How do I manage the bullpen? How do I manage my starter?
Yep. What kind of lineup do I set? You know that.
Look, Callaway failed in doing. Failed to manage his bullpen. He failed to manage his starter. Failed to manage his defense.
Yep.
And in one instance, he submitted the wrong starting lineup.
Can you imagine? Unbelievable.
That was his first game, submitted the wrong starting lineup.
Unbelievable. How, I mean, and when you look at Gabe Kapler, he did some bad things at the start of his managerial career too, out on the West Coast, so I don't think it's any coincidence that both those guys are gone from their respective teams, the Mets and the Phillies.
No coincidence at all. Doesn't surprise me much at all. Figure Kapler's in the mix for the Giants managerial position. He'll probably get that. And that's a rush to San Francisco Giants. If they get Kapler, they're going to need it.
I agree. I mean, because Kapler is every player's best friend on the team, and he just, to me, was not authoritative enough, and that was his weakness. Exactly. You can't, as a manager, as a boss, yes, you can be friendly towards your players and everything, but
you also need accountability. You need that confidence side, that disciplinarian side, those that need accountability.
Yep. And you have to instill in your team a sense of urgency as well. And that's something, and you have to be able to, when things are going wrong, because it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. Teams are going to have,
Baseball is a game of numbers, and it's a game where you will have losing streaks of 5 or more games. You have to show accountability. Hold your players accountable. Hold yourself accountable.
Yep. And get your team out of losing streaks. Keep the losing streaks to a minimum.
That's what Kapler and Callaway failed in doing.
Big time.
Callaway did it less last season, as you saw in that 11, 12-game win streak for the Mets in July and August.
Yep. Yeah, they just got off.
I would play Laura Brand against Gloria after every Mets win during that streak.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, if the Mets hadn't gotten off to the bad start that they had gotten off to, who knows where they might have been able to finish up. And that's the same thing with Kapler, is the fact that instead of getting off to a bad start, Kapler got the team off to a good start in his 2 years as manager. But yep, exactly.
September 1st year, he traded in August 2nd year.
Yep, exactly. And
They would have traded after the All-Star break.
exactly. And that's why. Yeah, and that's why they're not. That's why they're no longer on the team. What did you think of the Madden hire for the California Angels?
They haven't been called the California Angels since I was 8 years old.
I was trying to see if you would catch that. But what did you think of the Angels hire? Oh, absolutely. So what did you think?
The Madden hire, saw that one coming a mile away. Everyone
I agree. I
He
think.
has that non-pop inside him.
Oh yeah, I think he's
Reed side him.
yeah, absolutely. I think Madden's a very good manager. He relies on analytics, so he's going to bring that.
He's no dinosaur when it comes to analytics. He's no dinosaur when it comes to baseball as a whole. And I think he may have learned from Tom Coughlin.
I don't know about that. Two different sports, but he definitely, is part of the analytics brigade. From his. Yep. Yep. And also the fun brigade. He will relax the clubhouse. He'll have them doing some wild and wacky things out there in California, out in Anaheim, and he'll. Yeah, absolutely. A coach like that.
What Popovich did, he got the players involved in the world around them. He wants to have them watch the Democratic debate.
Yep. Absolutely, and that's what I think. And that's what I think he'll bring to the Angels. And then we had the Cubbies announce David Ross as their new manager. What do you think of that hire?
Another one I saw coming. David Ross helped the Cubs out of that 100-year slump. And this looks like an interesting thing to be. He has tremendous baseball IQ. He can relate to the younger players coming up. Found some veteran wisdom. It's kind of like that wise sage kind of manager as well. So that's my kind of the Power Ranger thing. Like the Zordon, the Jose, or the Captain Mitchell on Power Rangers like he's the wise sage, the mentor.
Yeah, my big question is David Ross only retired a couple of seasons ago, so he's fresh out of the game. My only question with David Ross is can he go from buddy to boss? Because up until this time, he's been around the Cubs. He's been able to be pals and friends with everybody. He hasn't had to be accountable to really, anybody in management or any players. He could be buddy with everyone.
Did play under the disciplinarian of the manager shown that hopefully he learned some things about being a manager from that to help him as the next boss.
I would hope so because it can be a trying situation. When you transition when you go from one of the boys, a player, one of the guys. Yep. Yes, the one who's making out the lineup card, the one who's going to have a player go out to him and say, "Hey, why am I not in the lineup for 3 days?" Or why am I not in the lineup today? I'm hitting X amount, and have to be accountable to that player and sit him down and say, "This is why you're not in my starting lineup." Or having to go to a player and tell them why they've been demoted to the minor leagues.
Exactly. Why he's been demoted to the minor? Not hitting well. Not hitting well against a certain type of pitcher. You need to go down, hone your skills against lefties, hone your skills against righties.
Yep.
You're not in the lineup today because you put
How do you think the Giants are going to do this Sunday?
Well, I've been watching Matt Stafford play these past few games. He has not looked particularly good. Danny Jones has looked okay. That Patriots game is somewhat of an outlier for Danny Dimes, but I think Daniel Jones will recover from 3 consecutive bad/mediocre starts, and I think the Giants will tame the Detroit Lions 27-20.
Pretty close game. I could see that because this is a big game. As you say, this is a big game for Danny Dimes, for the Giants team as a whole, for Pat Shurmur even maybe, because, you drop to 2-6.
2-6, and Shurmur goes on the hot seat. Danny Jones goes on the hot seat. And possibly the entire coaching staff going on the hot seat. Yeah,
no doubt. I mean, dropping to 2-6, you have your franchise quarterback in there. We talked about earlier in the show the Eagles falling apart. Who knows what can happen to the New York Giants if they drop to 2-6?
Exactly. You drop to 2-6, you basically have to win out to get to 10-6 to have a chance at division or a wild card. 9-7, I think, will get you a wild card. 10-6
will
get you the division.
No, not in the NFC. Not at all. Not in the NFC.
I'm being lenient here. 10-6 will get you into the playoffs in the NFC.
Just looking at I don't know that 10-6 will get you in the NFC, because you look at the NFC West. The 49ers are undefeated right now. You have the Seahawks, who are 5-2. The Rams, who are 4-3. The Arizona Cardinals are even 3-3. So everybody in the West is at least 500. Carolina Panthers have only 2 losses. They are 4-2. Saints are 6-1. Packers are 6-1. Minnesota Vikings are 5-2. Bears, I'm not too enthralled about the Bears. They're 3-3. So I'm thinking with those divisions, I don't think 10-6 gets you in there. You're going to have
expecting at least 4 of those teams to fall off in November and December. 4 of those teams are going to fall off.
But how much?
In December.
But how much? They're not going to fall off. They're not going to fall off. I don't think to 6 wins. I think it's going to have to be 11-4, or 12-4,
11-5 or 12-4.
I would say I would shoot for 12-4 because the West is looking incredible. And with
I was not expecting the 49ers to do this well. I was expecting them to go 6-10, as you saw in my NFL preview.
Yeah. Exactly, and they're sitting there. They're undefeated, so I don't see them getting. They may not get 4 losses all season. The Seahawks are cruising with 2 losses. Maybe they go to 4 or 5. I mean, you're gonna have to go probably 11-5, something like that, or 12-4 to make the playoffs in the NFC. It is a loaded field with a lot of good quarterbacks in there. And a lot of teams that are going to be beating up on other teams. Like I said, you have the Eagles on your schedule right now, and they could literally be a dumpster fire after this week. Ken Moskowitz and I, in the last segment, predicted that Buffalo was going to beat them, and then if that does come...
That's what I'm predicting. I'm predicting Buffalo wins against Philadelphia.
I was going to ask you about that, because then, if that happens, all of Philadelphia and the Eagles become a total dumpster fire. And like I say, go bathing in the Gowanus Canal, because, there you
go again.
Yep. Are going to be absolutely stench-filled. It's going to be ugly in Philadelphia, and I think...
When is it ever not ugly in Philly?
Yeah, and... Well, when they hired Joe Girardi as manager,
right now, the Sixers.
But when you hire Joe Girardi as manager, it's not too bad in Philadelphia. But I think right now it's looking like the only way for an NFC East team to make the playoffs. I mean, you got Dallas at 4-3, Eagles at 3-4, and the Giants at 2-5. And the only way for any of those teams to make the playoffs, you got to win the division. No wild card. The wild card is not going to come out of the NFC East. It's just not. So the only way for any of those teams to get into the playoffs, you got to win the division, which I think it right now could be if the Eagles had better unity on their team. You know, the Eagles might be able to contend. I'm not going to totally rule them off because Dallas is looking kind of mediocre, although they just traded for Michael Bennett, so to play along their defensive line. So again, I mean, just Dallas could win just because the Giants and the Eagles are worse. So the only way for a team in the NFC East to get into the playoffs, they gotta win the division. That's the bottom line for the NFC East.
I still think the road to the Super Bowl is going to go through either Green Bay, San Francisco, or New Orleans.
Agreed.
That's just me.
Agreed. No, I agree with you there. I mean, could Seattle make a push? Yeah, if the 49ers were to get a couple of losses there. But I do agree with you. I think in the NFC, it's going to either be the Packers, the Saints, or the 49ers, maybe the Seahawks, if the 49ers fall off just a little bit. But
in the NFC, it's going to be the road to the Super Bowl running through Foxborough. I see the Patriots going 13-3 now, not going undefeated like they did in 07-08 when who stepped in.
Yes, but I
still have no idea how Eli escaped that sack. That was me 11 years later.
Yeah, and and we had Doug Peterson beating him in the Super Bowl as well a couple of years ago. So
that was a bloodbath for me.
But I don't know if the Patriots are going to wind up with 3 losses overall. The way the Patriots are going, I know they haven't played a lot of killer teams, on their schedule. They just, they just haven't had a whole bevy of, good teams that they played. But, they go up, again, they beat the Jets 33-0. They have the Browns this week. I expect them to beat them. Face a difficult team the following week in the Baltimore Ravens. Then I'm
expecting the Ravens to win that one.
They could. I'm not gonna rule it out. They could. Then they get their bye week. Then they get the gift right now that is the Philadelphia Eagles. Cowboys after that. Houston Texans. They'll probably win that game. They may win that game. Kansas City Chiefs, who are a train wreck.
By that game, Mahomes will be back.
He should be, but the
and I'll be expecting the Chiefs to take that one.
The Chiefs defense has to. I don't care if you have Mahomes back. The Chiefs defense has to show me something, and they've been god awful. One of the worst defenses in the NFL. Thank you, Philadelphia Eagles, because you're worse than the Chiefs defense. But when you have Tom Brady, Chiefs made a trade for Mohamed Sanu this week. I know Tom Brady doesn't have a whole lot of weapons, but then, he's made
the most of the weapons he has.
Yep. So they do have, some difficult teams on there, some intriguing teams still left on their schedule, but that they could get losses for. So maybe you're right. Maybe they do go 13-3 to close out their schedule. Before we let you go, Mike, want to pick some games this week? Oh, before we let you go, before we pick some games, let us know what is going on with NASCAR.
All right. Sunday, we got the Paperclip, Martinsville, one of the oldest tracks on the schedule. Half-mile oval, very tricky, very treacherous. 2 years ago, we had a fight brewing between Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott. 11 ago, Chase Elliott was leading the race on track for his first Cup Series win when Hamlin spun him out to the ire of his hometown fans. I'm expecting Chase to get his revenge, take down Hamlin, and take down the paperclip for his first grandfather clock. Most unique trophy on the circuit, by the way.
Very cool. Now, do you want? And by the way,
That goes off 3 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN.
Gotcha. We will be tuning into that. And we also have your article. It should be up on sportsskilletradio.com if anybody wants to go in there and check it out. We want to go in and we want to have you pick some games if you are ready, Mike.
Lay it on me.
Okay. We've got the Arizona Cardinals at the New Orleans Saints. Arizona comes in at 3-3-1. The New Orleans Saints are 6-1.
Drew Brees is just going to be too daunting of a task for Kyler Murray to handle. I'm sorry, Kyler. New Orleans takes it 37-10.
There you go. A big win for New Orleans. The New York Jets at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jets come in at 1-5.
Hardman Minshew in Jacksonville.
You're picking Jacksonville?
Yes.
Gotcha. Want to get, I think you may have mentioned this earlier, but just to get you officially on the record, New York Giants 2-5
Giants.
At Detroit, who's 2-3-1. Who you got?
Giants.
All right.
7-20.
All right. What was the score again?
27-20 Giants.
All right. We've got the LA Chargers at the Chicago Bears. Chargers are 2-5. Chicago Bears are 3-3.
Chargers need a win. They're going to get it.
Okay. Do we have a score?
23-14.
Okay. The Philadelphia Eagles are up in Buffalo. We've got our predictions from Ken and I. The Eagles are 3-4. Desperately need a win to steady the ship. Buffalo is 5-1, has the top 3 defense in the NFL. Who do you got taking this one, Mike?
I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills 30-21. That'll put Peterson on the hot seat.
It will definitely. Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. Seahawks are 5-2. Atlanta starting to sell off pieces. They are 1-6. Does Atlanta have any chance of winning this game?
First off, I was not expecting Atlanta to be this bad this early on in the season. I was expecting them to be at least 500, 3-4 or 4-3. Instead, they're 1-6, heading into Seattle. At Mercedes-Benz Stadium, taking on a very tough Seattle team at 5-2. Sorry, Matty Ice. I gotta go with Dangerous Wilson and the Seahawks. 23-10.
Gotcha. The Carolina Panthers are in San Francisco. Carolina's 4-2. San Francisco is cruising along undefeated at 6-0. Will the 49ers suffer their first loss?
My apologies to your brother, Jay. They will suffer their first loss at the hands of Cam Newton.
Really? You think Cam Newton's going to be playing on Sunday?
He will play on Sunday.
Gotcha. And
the Panthers will take a bite out of the 49ers. They will swipe their gold. 33-30 overtime.
Gotcha. And we have the Green Bay Packers cruising at 6-1. We all know who gave the Packers that one. At Kansas City to face Andy Reid and the Chiefs, who are kind of struggling a little bit at 5-2. Can Andy Reid and the Chiefs beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers?
Andy Reid's a great coach. I'll give him that much. He can stop this losing streak before it becomes, a losing streak. I have faith in him. I have faith in Andy Reid. I'll give it to Kansas City.
Okay. Gotcha. I am going with Green Bay. I'm just not impressed with the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I know Pat Mahomes is doing everything in his power to get back on the field. I'm not certain that he's going to play on Sunday.
Right now, he's projected to beat his 3 to 6 week timetable. I'm hoping he gets back in 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah,
I want him producing for my fantasy teams.
I know that's killing a lot of fantasy teams. With him being on
right
the
now,
side.
I have Jared Goff to plug the leaks in one of my leagues. So,
gotcha.
I'm hoping he works out.
Hopefully, but unless he plays this Sunday and has this miraculous recovery and is on the field, I think Kansas City is going to get their head handed to him. This could be a bloodbath in Kansas City.
Don't be so sure. The Kansas City fans have proven to be quite an impediment on opposing teams.
If Kansas City had a good team on the field, which they don't, if Kansas City had a competitive team, but you're talking about probably no Pat Mahomes, an absolutely brutal defense that they can't stop a fly. They can't stop anything. I mean, they're as bad or worse than the Eagle defense right now. I mean, they are just brutal to watch. They can't stop anybody, and you're going up against a good defense.
Going up against good defense and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I just don't.
I am starting this week, by the way.
Awesome. Good to hear it. I'm sure that'll help. He may put up significant points for fantasy teams. I mean, this could be really ugly. It could be. And for
the Monday night game, I'm picking Pittsburgh. Miami goes 0-7.
I agree with you there. Pittsburgh's not been looking the greatest, coming in at 2-4, but I don't think there's any way Miami, beats Pittsburgh. I just don't see it myself. But before we let you go, Mike, any final words about the Mets, sports, anything?
Well, my final word on the Mets, this goes out to my fellow Mets fans. My final word to my Mets fans, don't be throwing Brody under the bus. It's not his fault that we didn't get Joe Girardi. It's the Wilpons. It's time for the MLB to step in, ditch the Wilpons, take control of the Mets, and sell them off to someone who cares about New York, cares about the team. Calling Michael Bloomberg.
Gotcha. And I got to say, I think it's a combination of the two. I think it's Brody not knowing who he wants to hire and wanting to interview a wide net of people. And I think it's also the Wilpons. I said,
do like that Brody casts his net wide, wanting to get the right manager right now.
Yep. Exactly.
So I do not blame Brody as much as I blame the Wilpons.
Okay, I think both of them.
I blame them for everything that's gone wrong with the Mets.
They definitely have had a hand in it, no doubt about it. But Mike, I got to let you go, and can't wait to talk to you again next Friday.
I'll be here.
All right, sounds good, Mike. Talk to you next Friday afternoon.
See you then.
Have a great weekend, and all our best to you and your family. And, of course, that was Mike Nebbia. You can check out his work at sportsskillerradio.com and on our social media channels as well. So I think, Jeff, we will wrap things up for this week.
All right, I'll get some bows and tape for the wrapping paper. And
yes, exactly.
Put a bow on this.
I know we normally talk a little wrestling, but we got started a little bit later this week. So we're going to hold our wrestling talk, AEW and the Wednesday Night War and SmackDown and Raw. We're going to hold that off just for 1 week. Or you can tune into our social media channels and we'll tweet out some stuff and post some stuff on our social media channels. So tune in there. Again, if you have any questions, want to talk about anything, feel free to reach out with us. Go over to sportskillerradio.com, download our app, and we look forward to talking to you again Sunday morning at 11 a.m. on Fox Sports Radio 920 The Jersey, and of course on our social media channels and at sportskillerradio.com. Have a great week, everybody, and talk to you again next Friday afternoon.
Now say this out loud as you're driving around in your car.
Join Sports Skillet.
Just what it feels like.
So how do you like it?
So what is it? I'm curious.
You
like it like this?
My God, do we love football.
Or like this?
I love the sport of baseball.
And what about this?
You can have a sports show without all the vicious talk.
Simple human decency.
Whatever it is that you like.
Yeah, I like chaos.
We've got it covered.
Right?
It's sports the way you like it.
My friends, you may not know this. It's got everything you want.
Here we go. Local and national sports talk that's fresh, in season, and FDA approved. If it's hot, you'll find it cooking with Jeff, Jay, and Kelly. They don't just stir the pot, they add more flavor than the other guys. Get ready to dig in and taste some Sports Skillet.
Tastes good.